I think to try to understand Kawhi, it's difficult. But let's just try to understand the whole process leading up to where we are today, July the 3rd. Kawhi was not happy with the medical advice that he got in San Antonio. After going back and forth with them as far as was he able to play, he said he wasn't healthy enough to play. He demanded a trade. And when he did that, he demanded being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. They denied him being traded there. So then he said, I'll go to the Clippers. I'll go to L.A. I'll play for the Clippers. I don't need to play with superstars. So now everyone has developed this opinion that Kawhi didn't want to play with players that weren't good. And no, it's been totally the opposite, because Kawhi, number one, wants to improve on his game, and number two, he wants to compete for championships. He's got 2, and he'd like to get a whole bunch more before he retires. But ultimately, like a lot of people, where do you want to work? So right now, I'm just going to tell you, this process started on Sunday night, and they have only been into this for less than 48 hours. And along the way, he was trying to go back to Los Angeles to play basketball, and that could have been either with the Lakers or with the Clippers. But the experience that just happened the last 2 months would change everything. It would change any other athlete's life. When you have the type of experience that he had with that team in Toronto, with the coaching staff, with the medical staff, with those fans, what he did to Philadelphia, what he did to Giannis and the Bucks, and ultimately to dethrone the Golden State Warriors, that experience would change you. So right now, he is going through a very, very tough decision. What I think is best for Kawhi is that he signs with the Lakers, because it should be about multiple championships. Can he win a championship in L.A. with the Clippers? Yes, he could. It's going to be awful difficult with LeBron and AD there. And Kawhi realizes that ultimately you want to play with good players, and he wanted to come to the Lakers even if LeBron wasn't there. And in trying to team up with Anthony Davis, that's something very, very intriguing. He doesn't think that the Toronto thing, how long can they sustain that? You know, how long are they going to be able to bring those guys back? Is it a one-year deal? And then next year he decides to go somewhere else? If I'm Kawhi Leonard, I decide to go to the Los Angeles Lakers because, based on what I'm hearing, he wants to win multiple championships, and he's always wanted to go back home to Southern California.
Real quick, before I give my opinion on this, you had said Sunday on Twitter, don't expect a decision anytime soon. We talked earlier this week. You said you thought it could potentially bleed to the end of this week. Now, tomorrow is a holiday. The July 5th is Kawhi's uncle's birthday, correct?
Yes.
And so do you think that we could potentially get a decision today before the 4th of July holiday?
I got no indication that we would get a decision today, but I do believe that the holiday and making the decision, I do believe we are in the final countdown.
Because
now, I wouldn't be shocked. I originally predicted that it wouldn't happen before 4th of July, but given the importance of that holiday to this country, do I see Kawhi Leonard deciding to go back to Toronto
on the 4th of July?
Yes. Like, I mean, I know people think they don't know Kawhi, but let's just use some common sense in trying to determine that typically, logically, it's going to be either announced today or it would be announced Friday.
And now it should be of note, Kevin Durant made his famous decision 3 years ago tomorrow. It was on the 4th of July, so it wouldn't be unprecedented for a player to make this news and all the NBA
But on 4th of July to go to Canada would be unprecedented.
But maybe he could, on the 4th of July, say, I'm going to go to the Lakers or go to the Clippers. I'm going to come back to the States. So I think the best option for Kawhi Leonard is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I would think that even if they didn't have LeBron James. I want to make that part clear. I think that the ability to pair with Anthony Davis, when we are talking about the best players in the league, that top 7, which people can disagree on the order, but everyone's got the same 7 best guys, LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, KD, Steph, Harden, Anthony Davis. The 3 youngest are Kawhi, Anthony Davis, and Giannis. Giannis is obviously not an option here. So it would make sense as far as career trajectory. He also wanted to be in Los Angeles to begin with. But I'm looking at it almost from the opposite angle. What is the argument against each place? The argument against Toronto is the age of the roster. The weather, of course, the taxes, but forget that. The age of the roster. They can immediately, if he comes back, defend their title. They might all of a sudden trump the Lakers and become the Vegas favorites. If not, they would certainly leap above Milwaukee as the second favorites and the favorites out east. But Marc Gasol is on the last year of his deal. Kyle Lowry is nearing the end. Serge Ibaka might not be nearing the end of his career, but certainly he's probably already past the beginning or the end of his prime. The only young guy that you would know you can grow with is Pascal Siakam, and to a lesser extent Fred VanVleet. Well, Danny Green's a free agent. So the age of the roster, if he does Toronto, I would think would have to be on a short-term deal. The Clippers, to me, would at this point be the biggest shock because all they have going for them, in my opinion, is the coach and the GM, not the players. Now, you can say the city, but L.A. is the same city as the Lakers, so that almost cancels itself out. Who's the second best player on the Clippers? I think it's Lou Williams, and I like Lou Williams a lot, but if he's your second best guy, are you competing for championships even with Kawhi? Because Kawhi, as great as he was last year, we know the Raptors had an excellent roster around him, and the argument against the Lakers is the total disarray that we've seen from the front office, the unknown on the coaching staff in Frank Vogel, and a lack of depth. But I almost cross out the lack of depth because the top of the roster would be the strongest we've ever seen in NBA history. I think the Lakers make the most sense. They were his first choice, and it is without a doubt his best opportunity to win multiple titles. And for as long as forget LeBron again, as long as he and Anthony Davis want to stay together, you will have the best duo in basketball. If LeBron were to say, you know what, I love Space Jam so much, I'm just going to do movies full time, I'm retiring, you would still have the best duo in basketball next year with Kawhi and Anthony Davis.
We're going to talk so much more about this today, but I don't think you can dismiss the Clippers and say, well, they just have a good coach and GM. They have a fantastic front office. They have a well-run organization. They have great stability, and those are three things that the Lakers just have not shown they've had in the last couple of months. And it seems like a guy like Kawhi Leonard wants that stuff, wants the coach, the front office, the stability, knowing that the future is sort of laid out for them. And one of the things I'd love to know before we break here is who do you think he's got a better shot of winning with? We know the Lakers, but would you say the Clippers or the Raptors?
Well, let's say also, let's not forget Toronto. People didn't think Masai was going to potentially stay there. They didn't have a whole bunch of stability. They had just fired the coach, hired one of the assistants. They had just gotten rid of one of the best players in franchise history. So let's not act like Kawhi can't function in the real world.
Of course.
Because we try to act like we know him. We don't know what Kawhi wants. But a lot of the discussions and what slowed up this process was answering those questions. And that's why it was important for him to talk to Magic Johnson himself, absent of the Lakers. When you're a kid growing up in Southern California and you see what Magic Johnson has gone through, you need an explanation for that. I believe that's been clarified. But ultimately, in the case that they asked me about, it's about Anthony Davis. It's beyond LeBron. Anthony Davis would be the favorite outside of Giannis to play with. And Anthony Davis has a more developed game than Giannis. He's just as good defensively as Giannis. So to me, I believe it's going to be L.A. is going to cancel itself out, but Anthony Davis is going to be the swing piece as far as deciding, I believe, where Kawhi is going to sign.
But quickly, to answer your question, Jen, if we scratch out the Lakers, there's no question the better chance to win a title between the Clippers and the Raptors this year is the Raptors. The Clippers process was 2 stars. Remember, they had 2 max cap spots.
Right.
The reason we thought the Clippers could be championship favorites was Kawhi plus someone else.
KD.
Kawhi plus KD, or Jimmy Butler, or Tobias Harris coming back if that was unlikely, but if that happened. Kawhi plus Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell is a contender and a nice team, but they are not a favorite. Kawhi going back to Toronto, we just saw them win a title, and so I think, to me, it's, as far as winning, Lakers, Raptors, Clippers, and I think most people would agree on that order.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.